Which makes me wonder, how does a grad feel about that? Here to discuss is Arkansas Senator Tom Cotton, Harvard alumni and author of 7 Things You Cannot Say About China. And we'll talk to you about that. First, your sense on this stare down between the administration and the Harvard administration, who says, how dare you tell me what to do?
Brian, it seems like Harvard is fighting the Trump administration harder than they fight anti-Semitism on campus. As I understand, all the Trump administration is asking is that Harvard simply follow the law after having decades of being given a pass on following the law. They should stop the anti-Semitic protest and violence on campus. They should not be hiring or admitting students based on race, as the Supreme Court ruled recently in a case against Harvard. They should do a better job of vetting international students to make sure that they're not admitting America-hating foreigners who come here to take advantage of our education system. These are all fairly simple requests the administration is making to Harvard to simply follow the law.
Yeah, reform programs and with records of anti-Semitism, discontinue DEI, implement the mask ban, prioritize ideological diversity. How about that? We know that only 3% of Harvard's faculty says they're conservative. 3%. How is that a balanced education? And adopt merit-based hiring and admissions. And you know the story, Senator. I don't mean to discount your degree, but now it seems freshmen need to take remedial math at Harvard. Are you kidding me? These valedictorians usually can't get into Harvard.
Yeah, and Brian, again, there was literally a Supreme Court case involving Harvard in which the Supreme Court said you cannot use de facto quotas to admit students based on race. Federal law says you can't hire on those grounds either. You also have to protect the religious freedom of students on your campus. All of these are fairly modest requests to Harvard University, and now they're in high dudgeon because, again, they've been allowed by past administrations to conduct ideological practices on campuses that federal law prohibits. That's all the Trump administration seems to be saying here, is that you need to follow the law if you want to keep your federal monies, which, by the way, it's not clear to me why Harvard needs so much federal money when they have a $53 billion endowment. When they charge students more than $100,000 a head, they seem to be doing quite well for themselves. If they can't follow the law, maybe they don't need all that federal money.
So President Trump had a situation meeting yesterday about Iran's nuclear program, which is weeks away from producing maybe 8 weapons, and we know about their intercontinental missile ability. There was a meeting last week in Oman, this week in Rome. The Ayatollah Khomeini came out yesterday and basically called for the destruction of Israel, says Zionists will be answered with a severe divine response. And there's no doubt about it. However, this doesn't reduce the duty of the people, our duty and of governments to get along. They took that as a threat in Israel. Your thoughts about where these talks are going? My sense is they got to lose all nuclear ability, energy and all. Don't tell me lower the enrichment. They got to lose all of it.
Yeah, that's right, Brian, and that's not just your thoughts, that's President Trump's thoughts as well. President Trump has repeatedly said for 10 years, we cannot allow Iran to have a nuclear weapon. This is not just a threat to Israel or the Middle East. This is a threat to the United States. They're developing ballistic missiles that could reach the United States itself within just a few years. So that's why President Trump left the Obama nuclear deal in his first term, because it was so weak. The only way to get a better deal is to say no enrichment of uranium, no ballistic missiles, no support for terrorism. President Trump has been clear about the terms of that deal. He's also been clear about the consequences. We want a diplomatic deal that takes Iran's nuclear program away, but if not, then there'll have to be military action because the threat, as you say, is so imminent. Just weeks or months away from enough uranium to create a nuclear weapon, maybe just a couple years away from a missile that could hit the United States. Also, Iran is at a particularly weak moment now after Israel destroyed most of its air and missile defenses and is devastating its terrorist proxies. These things are coming to a head, as President Trump has said, and he's been clear from the beginning. Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon.
And we have the firepower there with 3 aircraft carriers in the region. Senator, and you're on Armed Services. Senator Tom Cotton, thanks so much. And you got to go pick out his book on China if you want to know really what we're up against. Straight